my dad had, encouraged me to be a sign writer because I was pretty good at art, and he was a letterer. He was a retoucher in the printing trade. Now they've got it on computer. It's called retouching or Photoshop or something, where you can adjust photographs. Is that what it's called? Photoshop? Yeah. Well, he used to do all that by hand on negatives with tiny brushes and opaque. That's another story. She had a beautiful lettering hand, a bit better than my father's actually, he admitted. And they met down at Woolloomooloo, in a print shop down at Woolloomooloo. And I come from 6 kids. I'm the youngest of 6 kids. And I grew up mostly at Elbourne, on the northern beaches, which is now a pretty salubrious spot. And then it was a little bush suburb we had a nice asbestos fibro cottage. And now you drive past our little street now and it's a mansion built where our little place was. But we also had a house at Sutton Forest up near Mossvale, if you know Sutton Forest, which was left to my dad from his grandmother. And it's right on a little creek up there, and the back of the property is Nicole Kidman's house, which is a big mansion on the hill. I was going to work as another silk screening place, but she wrote me up a little card saying thanks for working with us and all the best for your future. But on the front of it, it had a diploma, a cartoon of a guy with a diploma under his arm. It didn't have silk screen printer, it had Signwriting on it. So she sort of sealed my fate there. And after a bit more silk screen printing with an old company called Roussel's, which had Signwriting as well, a very old company, even older than Aldhouse and Geiger, which is the oldest company still going down Parramatta Road. You might have seen their big place. Couldn't get into the Signwriting there. They didn't want an apprentice, so I spent 2 years silk screen printing, racking again, then printing. I didn't want to learn the final step, which is darkroom work, doing the positive printing and so on. So I got out of that and wandered around the streets with some artwork I'd done and some samples of lettering that my father had told me to do to show people that I could letter. So I'm 17 by this time. And barefooted, which is a great way to get a job. And no one wanted me, so my dad convinced me to put shoes on. The next place I went to, I got a job with an infamous character called John Willis. 7 of you probably know him because he knew nearly everybody in Sydney. And he was in Newtown, near McDonaldtown Station, right beside the railway line, in a nice, proper signwriting workshop. About 5 people working there. And as the trains went past, the wall would shake. So if you start ready to stop, and the train goes, start again. And they were characters, they were real characters, and none more than Johnny Willis, the boss. He was hard but fair, as they say, but he was just a character. He knew so many different characters, gangsters and prostitutes and everybody. And they were always coming in and out of the workshop, by the way. And so with Johnny, I worked with some terrific tradesmen. Johnny himself wasn't a very good tradesman. He was a slapdash one. Just a bit about my sign box here. You can see this disgustingly beautiful item. It looks very grubby because it is. This here is grease, car grease, which you use to grease your brushes. After you've used these are oil brushes for enamels. Hey John, I didn't see you before. Sorry. Yeah, these are oil brushes for enamel use. And once you finish with them, you wash them out with turps. Then you squeeze the grease into the hair of the brush. Squeeze it right up into the heel here. That's the ferrule, this is the heel. And that stops any paint you haven't cleaned out. It stops any, if you haven't cleaned your brushes out properly, which you're supposed to do, you squeeze the grease in it, it stops it drying in the heel. And it also gives the shape, squeezes into the shape that the brush should be in and holds it in that shape.
Do you do that to oil brushes as well?
Some artists actually do it
enamel, for enamel.
Yeah, some artists do it with their brushes.
I always use vegetable oil and then kill soap.
Yes.
And it works beautifully.
Yes, and linseed oil is very good too. Linseed oil for Linseed oil, sorry, not linseed
Well,
oil.
at the moment, I'm just using up anything that's left over.
Yeah.
And I'm using coconut oil, and it's brilliant.
Yeah. Bit of cooking oil.
Well, it's just cooking oil that's gone rancid.
Yeah, yeah.
So I just put it in a section. And I use
Lovely.
it on my brushes. So.
Smell even better than mine.
Yeah, they can always look sometimes consider like
These are watercolour brushes, or plastics as we used to call when acrylic paint first came in, it was called plastic paint. So they're brushes. These small brushes are all called pencils, funnily enough. Got a good range of weird and wonderful items here. These are stipplers. Just picked up this one recently. When you're in the olden days, we used to do doctors' windows, and they're always frosted. You remember doctors' windows are always frosted. So you brush, not roller, no rollers in those days. Brush your special mixture, which was oil undercoat and tons of linseed oil. Brush that on your glass from the inside, and then go over in a figure 8 pattern, which didn't leave a line that way. So you just did a figure 8 pattern all over the glass, and you ended up with like it was a spray finish from the inside. It looked great. On the inside, yeah, and that looked nice and smooth on the inside. The outside it looked like just like pearl glass, you know. And that's obviously a smaller one for doing. You can blend colours if you want to do a background of blended colour. You paint your two colours on, load it with linseed oil, then you bash it with this, and it blends them together. You can blend it this way with a standard brush, but this is the best way to blend. This one here, I don't even use. This is called a flogger. And I imagine it's for scenic art, which I've done a bit of scenic art. It's a great name, isn't it? Came from the convict times. Anyway. I don't do anything with that. I just brought that to show you because I like the name.
What you're supposed to do.
Well, for doing marbling in scenic art, you need a long-haired brush to get long strokes with plenty of paint in the brush. This is for when it's freezing cold. Seriously, in winter time you need that because this hand's moving with the brush, but this one's still holding your paint pot, so it freezes. That's just a classic old compass that you adjust the size you want. You can put chalk, charcoal, or that's a China goat pencil for marking out on glass. They're doing circles. This is an old, not a really old 3-foot rule. This is the new one, of course. It's a nice old one. You know it's not that old because it's got metric on one side. They used to be all imperial. This is a restic I don't use, but I brought that to show you what some people use for restics, or bashing off customers that they don't.
Well, why don't you use it?
It's a little bit thick. No, I use a restic, but I use a dowel type one, just a thin dowel. It's a little bit large. I suppose it's because you've got to hold the pot as well in your hand. Just a spare one. But you know, a lot of artists, I suppose now, maybe some still do it, used to use those for painting pictures. Mail stick it's called, sorry, M-A-H-L. These, people will know what they are. Just making wheels. They're used for, if I've got a repetitive sign to do, so I'm doing no parking maybe 10 times. I'm talking about the old days now, it's all done with computer mostly, repetitive stuff now. But you'd mark it out on paper, on a heavy transfer sheet, and you'd run the dressmaker's wheel over it, and perforate all the lines of the lettering, like you do with the pattern of the dress. And then you'd use, depending on the colour background, that's a chalk one. You pounce the paper with the holes in it, tape it on the wall, it's got the holes in the paper, bang that on there, take your paper off, and there's your mark out. So you don't have to mark out 10, you've got them all the same. And if it was, yeah, it's called a pound, paper pound. And this is another little stippling brush for finer. Sometimes you do lettering just on glass mainly. You do lettering, write a black outline, put 2 colours on, and then stipple them. So you've got a blended colour through the letter. There's a few watercolour brushes or plastic pencils. Just different sizes for different jobs. That's actually a quill. You can see that, have a look later. That's a bird quill that they used for the ferrule of the brush. This is a flat. It's called a flat.
What do you mean it's a bird quill? Does it come from?
Yeah, it's a bird quill, and they set the hair into it.
Oh, this thing
Yeah,
here.
that paste.
Oh,
Instead of the metal ferrule, which is like
Oh, I
copper or nickel. Yeah.
What, do you use watercolour on your signs?
When I say watercolour, I mean acrylic paint
Acrylic, yeah.
for sales, you know, closing down sale bargains, whatever. But what they've done with enamels now, as in signwriting enamels, they're phasing them out because of cost and production or whatever. And the stuff you buy now is nowhere near as good as it used to be. The enamels used to be the best. You know, if you wanted a sign done properly, you do it with enamel. Now enamels oxidise quite quickly, which means you paint an awning fascia, and then a couple of weeks later it's taking a white film over it because enamels is what they used to be. So they're forcing people to use acrylic, which is, you know, good for your health, but you don't get the finish that you used to get with enamel. With stick-on sign people, which I don't like talking much about, they roll an awning out with enamel and they stick the lettering on that. But a lot of them you might see around with the letters peeled off. They don't let the enamel cure enough, so that the stick-on doesn't actually stick. It sticks on for the day, they get the money and they go. And a few days later it starts to peel off, which I like looking at. It's peeling off. Stick-on letters. Right, that's about quickly run through the tools of trade. Where are we? Signbox, precious tools. At A&D Signs, where I served my apprenticeship, Johnny Willis had a huge amount of business. He had David Holdings, and you've probably heard of David Holdings, which became Campbell's, the food people. And they had jewel stores, Foodland, handicap liquor. Peter's Eye, oh not Peter's Eye, it's separate, but you know, David's had heaps of companies, and we did a lot of their signs all around Sydney and up and down the coast. He had the contract for Peter's Ice Cream, which was huge. That was, you can imagine Peter's Ice Cream was everywhere, like Coca-Cola, all over the shops all around Australia. We just did the East Coast. And with Peter's Ice Cream, you wouldn't even have a pounce of mark out because you're so used to writing that logo. You just get to the job, roughly get the centre of the awning, write Peter's Ice Cream, and then if you're a bit far to the right, you'd write "We serve." The other way, you'd write "Sold here." You'd probably still see a few of them around.
What do you mean awning?
Oh, sorry, an awning fascia. The front of an awning that hangs out onto the road, over the footpath.
Right.
The front of that with
Oh,
a
the
sign on
front.
it, that's called a fascia.
I see.
Yeah.
And that's where you do it.
You do your signs on there.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get up on the roof, lean over and paint the background in. Come
Is
back
it
and
a
check it.
canvas awning? Is it
No, metal fascias
metal.
usually, yeah. Yeah, that was a good trick, getting up on the roof and leaning over, painting upside down. Not riding upside down, but painting upside down. So you didn't have to, and you know, cars parked and so on. I did the music hall at Neutral Bay,
Yeah.
remember that?
Yeah.
We had a huge fascia that went for like 50 metres, maybe 60 metres. And I had to paint that quite often because the music hall would change the show, and it was, in those days, it was a permanent sign written on there, and then you paint it and do it again. I'm leaning over the top painting, there's a bus stop underneath where I'm painting. There's a guy standing underneath me in a suit. He's waiting for the bus, of course. And I say, "Excuse me," because I'm coming on painting, it's got a bit of paint around. "Excuse me," and he's still looking around. I'm not looking up, he's looking around everywhere else but at me. So I said, "Excuse me, I'm painting up here." No luck, he's just looking around. I don't know what he thought. I said, "Okay," so I just kept painting on him. And I didn't drop any on him.